The purpose of this video is to show you how to engage in a process called somatic resourcing. This is really helpful when you want to make your body a safe place to inhabit for the sake of interoception, pain control, or the tripart process I demonstrated previously of interoception, resourcing, and pendulation. So resourcing, basically the whole purpose here is to expand a feeling of goodness or pleasure or anticipation of goodness in your body, something that you want to feel more of, something that perhaps you've been missing, you'd like to enjoy more. Here's how we start. Start by taking a deep breath, quick breath in, hold it if you need to for a while, and then let it out nice and slow so you can start getting access to the body. Quick breath in, hold it if you need to, slow breath out. Notice what's tight, relax it a little bit, and consider a feeling that you want to have more of. Particularly, I'll invite you to think of either a memory of a time when you had that feeling, or a fantasy that gives you that feeling. It doesn't really matter whether it's a real memory or whether it's a fantasy. The most important part is that you start to have a pleasurable, safe, enjoyable feeling in the body so that we can go deeper. So go ahead and bring that thought to mind. And if it helps to relax a little bit to get there, quick breath in, slow breath out, notice what's tight. And think of a time you felt really good, or a fantasy that even just thinking about it, you feel really good. We're going to engage in a process where essentially your feelings will feed your thoughts, and your thoughts will feed your feelings. It's the reverse of what happens with a panic attack. Essentially, you're going to expand the feeling of goodness using the same neurological structures that are involved in that. So go ahead and relax the body if you're tense. Quick breath in, hold it for a while, slow breath out, notice what's tight, and think about that time, that experience, or that fantasy that brings out the feeling that you'd like to have more of. And most importantly, where's the feeling? Identify the location of it in your body. Notice where in your body it shows up. If it's a feeling of anticipation, joy, pleasure, hope, love, compassion, notice which part of the body activates, and breathe. Keep bringing the thought up if it feeds the feeling, and breathe. Now, as soon as you identify where this feeling is in your body, go ahead and start noticing its dimensions. How deep beneath the skin does that feeling seem to rest? Continue to breathe and notice how wide that good feeling in your body expands. Notice how high it reaches. Notice whether it moves or pulses or spins or does some other thing, whether it emanates to other parts of the body, and if so, notice the traffic patterns. Notice where the emanations happen or the movement happens. And if it continues to feed the feeling, keep bringing your mind to the thought, the memory, the fantasy, whatever it is that brings on this feeling. And go ahead and notice if it had a color, what it would be. We're going to engage the structures of the brain, the neocortical parts up high in the brain with the lower subcortical structures by giving that feeling a color. So breathe, notice that part of your body that comes alive when you think about that thought or that fantasy, that memory that brings up the feeling. And as you give it a color, if that's one of the things that your brain lets you do, then go ahead and notice where it seems to move as you watch it. Now, we talked in a different video segment about how pain, it tends to limit as you watch it. It tends to go back to its right size as you watch it and to find differentiation. Feelings of pleasure, anticipation, and joy, as long as you don't have some feeling of pain hijacking the process or some fear of it going away hijacking the process, they tend to expand. They tend to grow. And if it hasn't started expanding already, I want you to pay attention to where that color of that feeling shows up in your body, and breathe. And as you notice it, and as you notice what it does, I'm going to invite you to give it a nudge with your mind, if it hasn't already started expanding, to expand, and to see where in the body it travels, where it expands, and where it stops. Whether it's really close by, it just moves a little and stops, or whether it actually keeps going to different parts of the body. And then, at the place where it stops expanding, pay real close attention to what happens at the point of contact where it stops. Does it stop entirely, or does it move around the parts that it can't enter and go into other parts of the body, or jump into other parts of the body? Breathe and notice the expansion. If it helps, keep bringing your mind back to the thought or the memory or the fantasy that continues to feed the sensation of goodness in your body. And go ahead and notice how far it expands until it entirely stops expanding, until it goes as far as it can go, until it reaches into every part of the body that it can reach. And if you've given it a color, go ahead and notice in your mind's eye where the color is, which parts of the body are actually responding to where the color is. And this is going to seem a little odd to some people, but once it's expanded as far as it's going to expand, take a deep breath, notice all the parts of the body that it's entered, and then we're going to talk to it a little here. Send a message in your mind of thank you, down to all those parts where it is. This is an important thing for the neocortical subcortical partnership in the body-mind system. See, the thing is, this is the opposite of what happens with a growing panic attack. It takes a lot more consciousness to expand a resource, unless you're naturally gifted at it. And so as you get used to the idea of bringing a thought or a memory or a fantasy that evokes a feeling, and then gently expanding that in the body without shoving it or forcing it around, just noticing where it expands and where it doesn't, and then watching how it expands in a more fine level in the places where it might reach into around the parts where it stops. As you get used to doing that, what happens is your body becomes a more pleasurable and safe place to inhabit. It becomes a lot more useful when you're trying to go inside and relieve pain. You're trying to go inside and collapse an addictive trigger, or you're trying to basically activate nature's exhaust pipe to start getting discharge of built-up, pent-up stress energy in the body. So go ahead and continue to breathe. Notice where in the body all those good feelings are. Send messages of thank you to those parts of the body. And if there's a way to actually brighten them, like sometimes you can sort of manipulate the color a little bit, see if you can get it as bright as it can go, or if actually a darker color, if a more mysterious dark color gives a heightened sense of goodness, the kind of feeling that you're trying to get more of, then darken it. That can help as well. Sometimes people like to give it a sound, or just let a sound arise as they pay attention to it, and as they notice the sound, it expands or intensifies the feeling. And sometimes you can use other sense modalities, such as temperature. You notice the temperature of the good feeling in the body. Is it warm or is it cool? What happens if you really breathe and focus on it? Does it change temperature? Does it intensify? If it's simply a feeling of neutrality or just lack of pain, does actually a de-intensification help it feel better? Go ahead and breathe and feel where all that goodness is in the body. Get used to the idea of where it is in the body so that you can use that when you're doing other kinds of work, when you can actually go back to this feeling of resource. The more you get used to creating resource states, the more you're able to retune your subcortical structures in the brain and the neurological system to help you find more of what you want. It's like giving the hound dogs the scent of what you want so they can go and find more of it for you. See, there's parts of your brain that are constantly registering and noticing things that never come up to the upper level parts of the brain, never come up to the frontal lobes where you become consciously aware of them. There's parts of your body that are just registering these things and bringing it up to the brain constantly. And so being able to resource the body, to find the feelings of goodness and pleasure that you'd like more of and to really experience them intensely, that's a way of helping the subcortical structures realize on their level that this feeling is relevant to your survival. If you've been feeling a lot of panic, fear, or pain, and you've been really worried about the panic, fear, or pain, you've essentially counter-resourced your body. Time to reclaim that. Time to get that back with the process of somatic resourcing. Being able to help your survival system recognize that feelings of goodness, feelings of pleasure, anticipation, joy, and hope, and love, that these are relevant to your survival. I hope you found this exercise useful.